Hi there, my name is Carol Goodman and I'm the consultant nurse at the Scottish Photodynamic Therapy Centre in Ninewells Hospital and Medical School in Dundee in Scotland. I've been asked to give a personal experience of lasers and photodynamic therapy during my working life from 1986 to 2020. So I'd like to start off with part one, which would be the inspiration that led me eventually to get involved with lasers. Do you ever look at your life and wonder what it was that brought you to your career, your interest and your passions in life? I recall at the age of 8 reading the Ladybird book of the night sky. This was a fascinating book all about the stars, the planets and the constellations. It had beautiful illustrations and a brilliant section at the back on light wavelengths and telescopes. That stayed with me and made me want to know more, and was my keenest interest for years and made me curious for more information. The book itself was written by Mary Brooke, who was an Irish astronomer and physicist. She lived in Edinburgh and was married to the then Astronomer Royal for Scotland, Herman Brooke. I was very fortunate to meet Mary in Dundee at the Dundee Astronomy course back in 1990, and we became firm friends, and I would visit her many times and was absolutely fascinated by the amazing stories she had and discoveries she had made. I also had a telescope and loved looking at the planets and for deep sky objects, which was much easier then due to the minimal light pollution. The other book I read when I was a young person was Cosmos by Carl Sagan. I read this book many, many times, trying to grapple with the concepts within, and it was a fascinating book and a great TV series as well. So then I would say the next stage of my life that got me involved with lasers was becoming a nurse. And I trained from 1977 to 1980 as a student nurse at the Glasgow Royal Infirmary. And this was a fascinating and brilliant career start in life. In 1980 to 1982, I then went on to work as a staff nurse at Belvedere Cancer Hospital, radiotherapy and chemotherapy unit, and in the wards and in theatre. In 1982 to 85, I developed my special interest in cancer treatment and the technology involved in that, and then joined the first class of trained district nurses and got my Glasgow diploma in district nursing. All during this time, I would study at the Open University, just as a hobby, learning about astronomy, the history of astronomy, and working more in cosmology. I absolutely loved the subject and knew that somewhere in my life, I think I could somehow combine nursing and science. Lasers, light, wasn't really sure. But then suddenly, this advert appeared, and it was for Pilkington Medical Systems that had been formerly Barron Stroud, who were the defence company. They made, I believe, periscopes for submarines. They were based in Clydebank in Glasgow, and they were looking for a registered general nurse required with an interest and background in physics. Experience in surgery and operating theatres was definitely necessary. In 1985, I went along to Pilkington Medical Systems and was interviewed by a chap called Patrick. And he talked to me a lot about the lasers they were developing and that they had one of the first surgical neodymium doped yttrium aluminium garnet laser projects in Scotland and the UK. And they were looking for a laser clinical coordinator, so someone that could work in the operating theatres, come back to the physicist, chat to them about what was needed, what needed to be changed, and they would then develop this instrument from that. So I felt I was ideal for the post. I could stay upright in theatre. I didn't mind gynecological scenes because I'd worked in Belvedere in the radiotherapy gynecology suite there. And so he said if I was interested that I could have the post, and therefore I started with Pilkington Medical System. So start of my new career, it went on for 2 years, and I had the best time ever, I think, in my life at that time. So I was introduced to all the stars of lasers in medicine. People like Professor Kevin McGeesy, who was a thoracic surgeon who worked with the YAG laser, and later on in Go set up the Yorkshire Laser Centre. In Stop Hill, I got the opportunity to work with Dr. Joe Davis with the neodymium YAG laser, in gynecology doing endometrial ablation in the uterus, And Mr. John Smith, who was a surgeon, he used the YAG laser for treating gastrointestinal disease. Down in London, I got the opportunity to work with Professor Steve Bown, who was again a gastroenterologist and became the director of the National Medical Laser Centre in University College Hospital, London. And there I met Hugh Barr, who was a gastroenterologist, and in Liverpool, Dr. Neville Krasner, all gastroenterologists who worked with MD-YAG lasers and also in some cases with photodynamic therapy, which I'll go on to discuss in a later presentation. And then the star of all stars came into my life while I was coordinating lasers in Glasgow. This was, of course, Dr. Harry Mosley, who at that time was the principal physicist for Greater Glasgow Health Board. He was a laser safety officer as well for Scotland, and Harry actually became pivotal in my whole career in lasers and photodynamic therapy. We got on like a house on fire, and I used to bring lasers to him. We would discuss them. He supported me in any of the projects that I was involved with in Strawpill Hospital and all the hospitals actually in the Glasgow area, and also was principal in getting me involved in the photodynamic therapy centre in Ninewells Hospital in Dundee in 2000. I'll come on to that at a later time. But Harry, who's now Professor Harry Mosley, although retired, he and I keep in contact and have had many collaborations over the years. So I had just a great time. I travelled Europe. I worked in operating theatres all over Europe with teams of nurses, technicians and doctors. I learnt about the inside and the workings of lasers, neodymium YAG lasers, pulsed dye lasers, carbon dioxide lasers, and it was a great combination of nursing career and an interest in science. And that really started my travel onwards in lasers and medicine. So there were two highlights, I would say, from 1986 to 1987 of my days with Pilkington Medical Systems. And the first was working with Dr. Joe Davis as a consultant gynaecologist doing uterine endometrial ablation with a YAG laser in women with menorrhagia or heavy periods. But during that time, I also met with Professor Twink Allen down at the Equine Fertility Unit in Newmarket, and he had this idea that we might be able to help his horses who were having issues again. If we could use the YAG laser to do endometrial ablation in horses, that might help their fertility. So Joe Davis and I went down to Newmarket and we managed to get a laser taken down there. And keep in mind, these lasers were very large machines. I took some engineers down with me and we set it all up in the Equine Fertility Unit and treated some of these thoroughbred horses. The video on this is on YouTube and I put the link here and also the link for that down below. The second highlight would be the Royal Institution Christmas Lectures of 1987, and particularly Lecture 6, which was with David Phillips and Professor Steve Bown, who was a consultant gastroenterologist at UCH. So again, we took a laser all the way down to London. It was a big old Pilkington medical laser. Very large machine it was, water cooled, and we set it all up for the last lecture so that Steve Bown could show the laser being used in mock-ups. And again, you'll see this Royal Institution Christmas Lecture, episode 6, and the link of this down below to watch further. Other than that, unfortunately, I have no other material that I can show you. But in the next section, we're going to look at lasers from there on in, and there's a bit more material in that. Thank you for watching.